I was just talking to Kit, and she was expressing that maybe she would want to adopt kids because she has, I mean, she's only 10, so this is a long way off. But she was expressing concern and fear over what the process of being pregnant and going through labor does to your body, and pain associated with labor, especially. So I was telling her the story about my pregnancy and labor with Tana, her older sister, and she stopped me and said, "Let's do a vlog, because this would be a good vlog, especially since my first one was about Steve and I falling in love." And she wanted to be my camera woman and make sure you guys could actually see me this time.
Hi guys.
Not looking my best right now, so
it's all good.
I'm just going to address the elephant in the room since you can see me this time. Yeah, my teeth are screwed up, and that's a result of the 2 pregnancies, and I will explain that in detail another time. But you can probably tell with the way I'm talking that I don't really have top teeth anymore. They kind of all broke. So anyways, my pregnancy with Tana. So like maybe a week and a half before I found out I was pregnant with Tana. I mean, I knew I was pregnant before I missed my period. Like, I knew I was not going to get my period. And then when I didn't get my period as expected, I bought, a home test, and that turned up positive. And you've all heard the story of me. If you watched the first vlog, you heard the story of me telling Steve about that. So, but I was robbed at gunpoint at work, and could not, I have trouble even now. I mean, this is 18 years ago, almost. Next month will be 18 years. It was, I think, April 13th. And I even mention it, like, I can feel my anxiety level climb. I tend to keep that experience partitioned in a little box in my brain. And, it's in a box, in a safe, in a vault that I keep firmly shut at all times. So, I'm not going to go into that, and I doubt that I ever will, because I will cry a lot trying to tell the story. So just know that happened, and I lost my job as a result of that, because I quite clearly could not go back. Sorry, it's really hard to talk about. Could not go back to that job without having a nervous breakdown. And for the record, like, I did try to find another job. I did work at Kmart for a few weeks. I got workman's comp, and then their doctor said that I was okay to go back to work, even though I was, afraid to leave the house by myself. Afraid to be alone. I didn't even want to go see the doctor by myself, but they had arranged a ride for me, and, Steve was not allowed to go with me. And, anyways, I did get workman's comp for, a few weeks, and then, I tried the Kmart thing, and it was a combination of, I knew I couldn't be on the front register, so they put me in layaway, and they knew I was pregnant, and that I couldn't do a lot of lifting, and, I mean, at one point, they told me to lift an entertainment center by myself, that it ended up taking 2 grown men to move, and they told me to lift it by myself. So I talked to my doctor about it. I was experiencing a lot of pain in my abdomen, after my shifts there, and between that and having, the emotional stress it was causing me, she recommended that I quit immediately. And so I recall she wrote a letter to Kmart explaining why I was not even giving notice, that it just was not healthy or safe for me or my pregnancy at that time. So I did do that, and then when that didn't work out, I had an awesome crime victims advocate that really did help me through a lot, and he helped me get crime victims comp, um, that saw me through the rest of my pregnancy, and like I think just a little after like maternity leave. So um, that, I mean, that was, I don't remember even his first name. Um, the dude, like, if he sees us, he'll know it's him. I ran into him again 10 years later when, unfortunately, we were the victims of another crime. He wasn't my advocate that time, but I did run into him during that process. I think his name was Ed. Not sure. But I did also give him, we did go see him after Tana was born at the courthouse and give him a birth announcement, and took Tana to see him, so he'll know who he is. And I very much appreciated you. And also the other advocate I had the other time that I needed one. They do some great work. So, anyways, about maybe like a week or two before I had the incident at the job, the first incident that I don't want to talk about, my then boyfriend, now husband, had been accused of stealing like $200 from the register. The funny thing is, he didn't do it. And the person that did do it, you would think they would count themselves lucky that it got pinned on him and they got away with it. But several weeks after I left, they got greedy and did it again, which, you know, resulted in him being exonerated, but they didn't even offer him so much as an apology, much less his job back. And I guess the one bit of, you know, karmic justice in this is they got bought out and they're no longer a company anymore. So even if I said their name, they're not around anymore to like slander or anything. So, but I won't. Let's just say they were a convenience store, no further trucks at Christmas time. Anyways, so I was 19, no job, losing my apartment because I had no job, no health insurance because I had no job, and pregnant, and he had no job, you know, because he was unjustly fired. He was able then to collect unemployment for a while until he found employment. But, you know, at that moment, I was 19 and scared and didn't know where to turn. And this is going to be, you know, my preachy support Planned Parenthood thing, because they're not just about abortions. In fact, that's a very small part of what they do. So my experience at 19 was going to Planned Parenthood, where they did, you know, like a medical pregnancy test. I'm pretty sure they're pretty much the same thing as the at-home things, but, you know, it officially confirmed the pregnancy. And the first thing they said, you know, well, of course they told us the test was positive. Steve was with me. And the first thing they said is like, they were like, is this good news? Is this happy news? And, you know, obviously the timing was not ideal, especially, you know, financially. But, you know, Steve and I knew that we were right for each other. And we said yes, that we were happy about it. But, you know, the situation, explain the situation that we were in. And they were great. They helped me hook up with several agencies, you know, WIC, and some, there's a charity that gave me some maternity clothes for free. I was hooked up with a visiting nurse that came out to check on me. The only thing that they helped me get signed up, they helped me fill out all my paperwork for Medicaid. The only thing that I was confused on at the time was that I did actually have a choice of OBGYN, and I could have gone to an established um, practice for my prenatal care. And I don't know exactly how it got lost in translation, but I thought my only option was to go to a clinic at the local hospital, which was basically like residents, like, if you ever watched the show Scrubs, it's like, season 1 of Scrubs. The woman that ended up being my, being my OBGYN, at the point that I started seeing her in the beginning of my pregnancy, I don't think she had delivered a baby yet, and I think Tana ended up being the third baby that she delivered, if I recall correctly. So she was not very experienced, and the reason that relates is that she missed that I had a very serious condition later in my pregnancy called preeclampsia. And you have to, I don't know if there's more than the 3 symptoms that I had, but I know you have to display 3 symptoms for a diagnosis. And one is swelling, which especially in the legs, and my legs were always very swollen, especially my ankles. But like my legs were really swollen. And the second is high blood pressure, which some visits I had high blood pressure. And then the third one is protein in the urine. So some visits I would have the high blood pressure, sometimes I would have the protein, but I would never have all 3 simultaneously. And because of her inexperience, I believe she missed the fact that, I'm thinking, if I remember, it was like I was about 6-7 months pregnant at the point that I met the criteria for having preeclampsia. And normally, 1, I would have been much more closely monitored than I was at the time. And 2, they want to deliver the baby as soon as safely possible. That will have the best outcome, because it's a dangerous condition. Usually it causes seizures, but another thing it can cause, I did not end up having any seizures. I ended up having my organs failing during labor. So Tana was due December 29th. And once I went past my due date, I was going out to the Women and Babies Hospital regularly for ultrasounds every couple of days, just to make sure everything was still all right. And that was the point, was, when I would go out for my ultrasounds, they'd also obviously notice the swelling and puffiness, and check my blood pressure and, for the protein. And that was when they caught it, was that I was having 3 symptoms, just not simultaneously. Also, when I, January 9th, I went for the ultrasound, and they're like, oh, this baby's going to be, about 10 pounds, 4 ounces, give or take a pound. Which up until then, my doctor had said, well, I can't really feel where the head is, so it's probably a small baby, maybe 5 or 6 pounds. So that was suddenly, doubled. So that was a not pleasant surprise. And then I was immediately pretty much rushed to a labor room and induced. And I know that my adoptive mom was there with me initially for the ultrasound. I can't remember if Steve came to that too, or if he was working and we had to call him to come in. But he was definitely there by, I think, the time they started at the induction. So, it was, like, an induced labor is definitely more intense. I mean, I've never had a labor that really started naturally on its own. Both times I had to be induced. So, but it's my understanding that it is much more intense than, a natural labor when it's induced. And the first thing they do is they put like a little tablet on your cervix, and that did not go well. They had to flush that right back out, and I do not know why, but they used ice cold water, and that was very painful. And then they started a Pitocin drip, which Pitocin is another drug they use to, start contractions. Um, and, you know, I mean, it's, especially induced labor is a really, at least for me, it was a very long process. I think it is for most women. And it was kind of a circus. Like, my birth mother's family, that whole side was in and out. My adopted family was in and out. Steve's family was in and out. My grandparents, people from church. I was appreciative of all the support I had, but it was kind of a circus. And I made it 24 hours with no pain medication. I really, really wanted to have a fully natural, drug-free childbirth. And after 24 hours, well, my nurse had gone on lunch and another nurse had come in. And at this point, I was really struggling because, I mean, pain is tiring, you know, like, deal with contractions for an hour, no problem, but each additional hour gets harder and harder to deal with. And, you know, they get more and more intense. So the substitute nurse came in and she was like, is there anything I can do for you? And I was like, yeah, you can turn that effing thing off, you know, meaning the Pitocin drip. And I had monitors on my belly, you know, monitoring contractions and Tana's heart rate and stuff. And she looked at the strips from the monitors and was like, oh my God. And immediately stopped the Pitocin drip, at which point, you know, the doctors came in and I had like 4 residents. You know, 3 in addition to the one that I had been seeing for my prenatal care. And they were like, no, you have to start the Pitocin drip back up. And that nurse probably saved my life. According to her, she did. She said, if I start that drip back up, anybody starts that drip back up, it's going to kill both her and that baby. And I'm not leaving this room. And it's not getting started back up. I'm not going to have that on my watch. So, thank you to her. I don't remember her name either, but thank you. So at that point, they decided to examine me and see where I was in my labor, and they decided that it was safe enough to break my water. They don't want to break it too early because the umbilical cord can come out. But the point I was at, it was safe enough to break my water. And, you know, more contractions, and I was just exhausted. And it had been, like I said, over 24 hours. So I asked for just, like, a little bit of pain medication. And it didn't really help. I don't know what they gave me, but it didn't help. And so after an hour, I was just I couldn't do it anymore. And I at the time, I felt like such a failure, but, like, I don't regret it at all. I asked for the epidural. And, that allowed me to get some sleep, and even though it was only like 2 hours, I so needed that 2 hours of sleep. I don't think I would have had the strength to push Tana out had I not had those 2 hours of sleep. So I wake up to my body starting to push, and you know, I tell them, and they examine me, and they say, oh, you're not fully dilated yet. And in Lama's class, they had said, you know, if you breathe a certain way, it is physically impossible for you to push. So if they tell you not to push, you know, you breathe this way. Well, that's a lie, because I was doing the breathing exercises, and I was pushing. My body was pushing all on its own. So after an hour of fighting this, the nurse called the doctors down again and was like, her body's pushing, whether she's doing everything she can not to push, and her body is pushing. So they examined me again. We're like, oh, your cervix is just kind of funny shaped. You are fully dilated. So I had spent an hour fighting the pushing that really used up a lot of valuable energy. So then on top of that, I spent another 3 hours actually pushing. 3 hours and 1 minute, actually. And, you know, during that time was when I was really in the most trouble, that they kept putting the oxygen mask on me. Like, apparently the monitors were showing that Tana's oxygen level was dropping, my oxygen levels were dropping, and that they had explained, they didn't explain it to Steve and I at the time, I think because they didn't want us to panic, but they had explained, like, Steve had forgotten the Lamaze class stuff, so my birth mother ended up being my birth coach. And Um, my adopted mother had never gotten to experience birth, for herself. She wasn't able to have children. So while it was no substitute, could never replace that experience, I did offer to let her be there and at least experience a birth, be there for a birth, even though she couldn't experience one herself. And then because my birth mother was there and my adoptive mother was there, it was only fair that Steve's mom was there as well. So, like, Steve had one leg, my birth mother had the other, and was coaching me. My adoptive mom and Steve's mom were on a chair in the corner. There was the 4 residents. There was an attending doctor that was checking in. There was the NICU. I think they had the NICU on standby, but there was like half a dozen nurses in the room at the time. And that probably all should have been a clue to how much trouble I was in. But I was blissfully ignorant and oblivious at the time and just focused on getting this baby out. And, I wasn't, I could have died. She could have died. It could have been a very different ending. But after 3 hours of 1 minute, finally Tana was born. She was born at 10:18 at night. And she was beautiful. She was, at that time, literally the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And, that was very much Steve's reaction as well, everybody's reaction. And, despite all that, it was worth it. And I already knew, like, that, I was told afterwards, how much trouble I had been in and how, close we had come. But I already knew, like, that I would do it again, that it was worth it, and I would do it again. And, this is probably getting long. Definitely getting long. So I will,
Wait.
So yeah, it was all worth it, and I wanted to let Kit know that I had one of, maybe not the scariest, but I had a very scary situation, a very dangerous situation. And despite that, was willing and wanted to do it again. That's how worth it is. That's how worth it was to me to have the experience of pregnancy and birth and breastfeeding and having my own children. So, I just want her to know that, and I will tell you Kit's story at another time. And, if you want to subscribe to Kit's channel, she is Astrophine.
Aristphine.
Aristphine.
Yeah, it's Aristane.
Okay, Aristphine. Okay. She's a Aristphine. It's mainly what, your drawings and animations and stuff?
Yeah, it's a drawing and animation channel. So.
Okay. So, she doesn't really put, herself up, but she
don't put my
shares her
face.
artwork. I wish she would sing on it more, because she's got an amazing voice. Even if she's not showing herself, I wish she would sing, because she has an amazing voice, really. Like, this girl could sing before she could talk, literally. What? Never mind? Okay. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe. Hit that bell to get the notifications. If you have a question about anything I've talked about on any of my vlogs, or just a question in general for me, go ahead and leave a comment. And as long as it's something that's not too personal, or like there are certain topics that, I won't go into, like the one mentioned or earlier. And, I don't want to put other people's business out there. Like, I want to tell my stories. I don't want to tell other people's stories. And as long as it's like there are some things that I won't touch on because they would cause strife in my family, and I don't need that. But other than that, I mean, I really don't have too much of a filter. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but, it's who I am. So, yeah, go ahead and ask, and, if I can, I'll answer. Most likely answer, and very bluntly. So thank you very much. I'll see you next time, and goodbye.